Good afternoon. My name is Charles Grant. I am a fourth year criminal justice major at Florida A&M and Mechanical University. Today I'm going to be talking about a topic for my technology class, which my topic today is American War on Drugs, which was a drug act signed by President Ronald Reagan in 1986 to combat crack cocaine and drugs that were being spread throughout the United States of America. The anti-drug bill was created due to the uprising of violence and drug overdoses that were occurring across the nation at that time. The Anti-Bill Drug Act brought a lot of federal guidelines. There would be harsher drug sentences that were given out to those who were convicted of selling and transporting drugs illegally in the United States of America. Also, there were drug rehabilitation programs that were offered to people who were using drugs at that time and needed some counseling or rehabilitation to help them conquer their drug addiction. There were a lot of effects of the anti-drug bill, and a lot of effects. It was the community which was affected the most was the African American community due to the low poverty and income that were it was in the African American community, which occurred due to there not being limited jobs for the African Americans at that time, where most African American males were sell cocaine to provide for their family. And a lot of those were the African Americans who were convicted and sentenced and given these harsh prison sentences, which create a never-ending cycle due to there not being a father or parent in a household to provide. So the child will most likely do what they saw their parents do, would be sell drugs. Which create a never-ending cycle because generation starts to repeat itself, where most kids see, hey, my family member did this, did that, so I'm gonna keep going because I don't know no better, or I don't have an adult around to tell me right from wrong due to my parents being incarcerated at that time. Also, the federal census and drug guidelines created some racial tension at the time. The first year when it was there was 11% that the African Americans were sentenced higher than their white males, and 4 years later, that percent grew to 49%. Which is some of the things that we deal today with African Americans in the justice system, where there are being sentences higher for drug convictions compared to the white males. And due to the federal anti-drug from Ronald Reagan, which is some of the things that we still deal with today in 2023, where there is a lot of African Americans serving life sentences for nonviolent crimes, which introduces something called the mass incarceration, where a lot of African Americans are being sent to prison in large numbers for nonviolent crimes compared to getting them some help or creating jobs. There was also some major political party that plays a role in the anti-drug bill. You had some Democrats and you had some Republicans at the time, where tension was rising on both sides. Also, Nancy Reagan, who was the wife of President Ronald Reagan, started to say no to drugs, where she would travel to different elementary schools and neighborhoods and talk to young kids about saying no to drugs and to stay away from drugs. States that were impacted the most was like a lot of southern states, like you had New Orleans, you had Georgia, Florida, and where drugs were easy transported due to the Gulf of Mexico, and also the turnpike, which goes down from Key West with drugs, so we smuggled in through the loopholes. So they played a lot of major roles in drugs being transported across the United States at that time. It was easy to bring drugs in because they didn't have the resources to traffic, to watch these waters where drugs would come in with the Coast Guards and stuff like that. So they didn't have the resources which we have today to combat it. There also was a lot of false imprisonment cases, which was a huge effect in the African American community, because you had a lot of African Americans who were who were arrested and convicted for crimes they didn't commit, like in Tula, Texas, where there was a cop who was hired through the anti-drug law by Ronald Reagan, where the town was giving money funds to combat drug offenses, where he falsely arrested 47 people for drug convictions that they did not commit. And a lot of these people had alibis and times to prove that they was not dealing with drugs, which also created a problem because the more people were arrested in the town, the more funding that they would get from the federal government, which created another racial problem in the justice system, where a lot of people were arrested and convicted for crimes they didn't commit, like I said, which creates a never-ending cycle in the African American community where, you know, the child is stripped away from their father. Families are broken up. So due to that fact and them having a record, while they're locked up, they're not given treatment. They're not given treatment or tools or resources to provide for their family. And now them getting out as a convicted felon, they turn to back what they knew before, which was dealing cocaine and selling drugs, so which always create a never-ending cycle. In my opinion, the anti-bill drug has its pros and its cons, but I think that it was also a bad thing that happened because there was more cons than there was pros, where you have a lot of people who were arrested and convicted for crimes they never commit, and they were given harsh sentences compared to the violent sentence guidelines that they have in place. So it's, in my opinion, I don't think that the anti-drug bit helped anything. I think it created more problems than it did fixing it.